Set. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cuyahoga County Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting of this Tuesday, November 30th. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. There is a quorum.
Public comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 2 people signed in. Oh, and also, as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. First person signed in is Mr. Michael O'Donnell.
Welcome, Mr. O'Donnell. Before you start, I've read your communications or your law firm's communications. So if you would continue. Whatever you're comfortable with. There's a button.
Apologies. Thank you. Michael O'Donnell from Browse McDowell. I'm an attorney here representing Chase Professional Transport, and my client Judy Barlock is also here in attendance this afternoon. We are here to speak about the second item on the matters referred to the committee, item B, 5B, R 2021-0272. This was a resolution awarding a contract to Esposito Transport. My client also submitted a response to the request for proposal that was issued by the county, and we were not awarded the contract. As I mentioned, it was awarded to Esposito. A couple of issues we just wanted to highlight or bring to the attention of the committee. You know, I know that price certainly isn't everything when you guys in this body considers those contracts, but our price did come in lower. And then there were a number of other things where we believe our bid was probably a better response to the proposal than the Esposito bid, which was awarded the contract. But probably more than that, and giving rise to a lot of why we're here today, is because once we determined that we weren't awarded the contract, we reached out to some folks at the county to try to figure out, you know, what happened. Was our bid not, was it disqualified for some reason? Did something happen in the bid process along the way? And we weren't able to really get any response. So, and so maybe there are some easy answers here, but part of the problem is just that we don't know them. They haven't been communicated to us. And I'm not going to say in particular. What's that? I'm sorry.
Were those communications
I believe there was at least one email communication, and then I think there were multiple phone calls. And I think there's an individual listed in the RFP at the medical examiner's office, and they were directed to him, not to this body. So look, in any event, at a minimum, we think we'd like this issue tabled or held until we can at least get some answers. But ultimately, it may be that we ask that it be rebid if, in fact, we find out that our bid was not disqualified and we think it was perhaps a lower and best bid or whatever standard this body would like to apply. So at that point, I would wrap it up. I don't know if Ms. Barlock would like to say
that's fine.
a few words, but okay. Thank the committee for its consideration. Okay.
When we get into the
Great. Thank you.
next.
Ms. Barlock is signed in.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. I'll tell you what, why don't we, if you don't mind, the sheriff's office, we have a concern with moving forward real quickly on yours. Do you have a couple minutes to wait? Who was here for 0271? Oh, Juvenile, can you hold on a sec? Okay, Janine, could we read, first off, in your packets, committee, there are the minutes of November 16th meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept a motion in a second.
So moves.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussions on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Janine, could we read 0272 first?
Resolution number 2021-0272, making an award on requisition number 7193 with Esposito Transport, formerly known as Esposito Mortuary Services, in the amount not to exceed $3,512,500 for body transportation services.
I know we have Mr. Shannon here from the medical examiner. Do we have anybody from purchasing? Mr. Shannon, you've been somewhat made aware of the concerns. Do you need any further information from Mr. O'Donnell, or do you have answers readily available?
I have answers, yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this was a rebid of the body transportation contract. It's been held by Esposito for the last 2 contracts. Part of the vendor qualification responsiveness was to be able to provide documentation that the volume that was being requested in the RFP be documented. That didn't take place in the bid packet that was submitted by the challengers here. And so as a result, they were scored much more poorly than the current contract holder and the awardee.
So you received their bid. Who did the scoring?
It was myself, Dr. Gilson, and the manager of our morgue operations and investigations unit.
And for everybody's edification, could you take us through after you score, what do? You send it back to purchasing, or?
Right, so the scores go back to purchasing, they compile it and give us the final results.
Are those scores readily available to you, or some?
They should be available through purchasing, but part of what I understand is a lot of the communication was coming back to Mr. Banza, who's at our office, but he didn't run the bid process, so he passed those concerns on to procurement down here. If there were any technical issues with how the bid was carried out, they would have to address that. As far as the scoring, you know, the sheets are the sheets. Everybody scored them individually. I don't know if they've gotten a copy of them or why they wouldn't have if they requested them. I don't know if they're public documents or not. I assume they are.
Okay. Mr. O'Donnell? Okay, so we've heard that they were scored. Did you have concerns with the scoring, or you didn't know your score, or?
Well, and I think it was touched on a little bit. I think we were looking for some additional information, and those communications were sent to Mr. Banza. It sounds like they were forwarded on, but then nobody ever communicated back to us. So we are a little bit at a loss. I'm not sure, I could confirm, but I'm not sure whether or not we knew the issue was whether or not we could do the volume. My client is here today, and she can assure this group that she can, in fact, handle the volume. That's not going to be an issue. But it sounds like that was the major problem with the bid. So I guess that's our reaction.
Okay. And there were deficiencies in the return, in the RFP?
I mean, that was the major issue. There are multiple issues throughout the proposal that were, again, when the scoring process went through, they were docked for, you know, lack of documentation or like I said, the first thing that it says under vendor qualifications is you must meet these minimums. And none of that information was in the proposal that led us to believe that they had already been able to handle that volume, or if they're already handling that volume, how they would handle an additional amount in that same, you know, or greater number.
Do you have anything further?
I don't think so. I think from our standpoint, it would be helpful if the committee would consider holding this so we could get this additional information, so we could evaluate it. We may well withdraw our protest or appeal if we're satisfied with the communication.
Okay, if you could give me a minute here. Committee? I don't know if it, would you have a problem coming back before the Tuesday meeting so they can get the information? Is that all right? You got a problem? How about we do this, because we're up against it, because the contract's January 1, I guess we got some more questions, but my thought would be to hold it. We have a meeting Tuesday. We could have another safety meeting for 10 minutes before our official meeting Tuesday, because we're not having any more meetings. So there's a time problem here. So Hugh, what we can do, if you don't mind, could you sit with Mr. O'Donnell, get them the information that they need, and we'll be back for that. We'll post the meeting for Tuesday, I don't know what the time will be. It'll be just before our council meeting of next Tuesday, and hopefully everything's okay. Then we'll have to add that to the agenda if the president's okay with that. But before you go, further questions? Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair to Mr. Shannon, do you have that, you talked about the scoring, and that wasn't the only criteria, but at first you mentioned that it was the scoring that they got scored very poorly for not getting it in on time, untimely submission. So could you give us that score breakdown? Do you have the score?
So I don't have it. Once we fill out those forms, they go back to procurement. So what I had said is that vendor qualification, it was required to be a responsive response to the request for proposals. It was not included, therefore they were scored poorly on that section. And for our purposes, from an operational standpoint, if we don't have the confidence that that agency is able to handle the volume that the target that we set, I mean, the last thing we want is not to be able to have bodies picked up when they need picked up.
Through the chair, is Mr. Banza the one that all of the bidders were supposed to reach out to?
That I don't know. I think his name was one of the names that was in the proposal because he had to help prepare it. But as far as the technical issues of how to do a bid process, that's, I think, handled downtown by procurement. They work together. So I know that when the first email that I saw came, Mr. Banza sent it to me and to folks downtown.
I'm just thinking for the future, you know, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but just in the future, to be clear on the bid process of who the individuals need to respond to, who would be in charge of making sure the department as well as procurement is all in the right communication. That's all I would say.
Well, let's do that. I don't like doing that, but to be fair to the challenge, if you could provide them with the scoring and whatever, and you're probably not going to get anything more than the scoring. You know, as far as any whys, I don't think that, I don't recall us doing that. But at least you'll have the scoring and whatever information that was used on the scoring that was sent back. And that's how we rolled on that. So let's do that. We'll set it. Is that okay, Mr. President? And we'll amend our agenda if everything's copacetic. After our 10-minute meeting Tuesday, you get your information, and then we could pass the legislation for that meeting that evening. Is that all right? I appreciate your time. I hope that answers at least your concerns as far as we sit today. Okay, thank you. So we'll hold in committee 2021-0272 until next Tuesday at a time to be determined, with the intent to move the legislation forward at next Tuesday's county council meeting, which is the last one of the year for us. So we'll be making a special provision for that. Okay? Everybody okay with that? Okay, thank you. 2021-0271.
Resolution number 2021-0271, making an award on requisition number 3353 with Integrated Precision Systems in the amount not to exceed $884,031 for the Detention Center Security Project.
Okay.
Afternoon, Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. This is our contract with IPS for our long-awaited security project in our detention center. We did issue an RFP for this project, and it closed back in November of 2020. We received in 2 proposals from the RFP. One was the current provider that we have right now, which is Black Creek, and the other one, which is the provider we're proposing to contract with, which is IPS. We did offer, as part of the RFP process, we did offer a walkthrough of our facility. So IPS did come into the facility and do a complete walkthrough of the facility and looked at everything they needed to look at. As Black Creek was our current provider, they did not take us up on the walkthrough. As part of the RFP, we worked with a number of different county departments as well as a number of different departments within the court. So we involved juvenile courts administration, IT, detention center, and fiscal department. And then we also worked with the sheriff's department as well as the county IT department to kind of collaborate and make sure that what we were trying to do worked with, what the sheriff's office had and what county IT needed. And we worked collaboratively to make sure that everybody was on the same page and it would all work cohesively. And back in May of this year, we were before you to request the additional funding for this project. So back in May, we were approved for about $7.2 million in capital funding for this. So that is part of this project. The remaining about 2.6 is what we're considering the annual maintenance, God bless you, annual maintenance for the project. And that's what's going to be coming out of our general fund for this. And then I also have with me folks from our legal team as well as our superintendent of the detention center to kind of give you the more IT and security aspects of what the contract actually entails.
Ann McDonough, I am Assistant Legal Counsel for Juvenile Court. And to just echo what Sarah said, we worked collaboratively on this project from the get-go with County IT, Public Works, in the Sheriff's Department, and then through the contract negotiations, County Law was also involved. So it has been a collaborative process from the beginning and all the way through. This project will address a critical infrastructure need for our court. Our current system is at the end of useful life and unsupported by current technologies. And the project will be all-inclusive of our entire security infrastructure at Juvenile Court. It includes cameras, waived arrest system, jail tracker, detention management system, intercoms, mobile devices, workstations, off-site data storage, and will allow for all county buildings to now be on the same access control center. It will also increase efficiency and ability to interface with existing court systems. The contract structure, the way it is set out, is an installation work order which defines the materials and services to upgrade the juvenile justice systems. Expected completion of the installation is within 18 months. Support work order, which defines the ongoing services to maintain our systems, provides for a 5-year service period. A hardware maintenance agreement that defines the support of the physical materials, software support agreement that defines the support of the applications, and hardware as a service agreement defines the replacement plan for the equipment life cycle. And then there's a master service agreement covering all the legal terms.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Winarczyk, Superintendent of the Detention Facility. I don't actually have a lot to add to what the two ladies have already shared with council, other than just to reinforce the failing infrastructure that we have, the obsolescence of the equipment, and the inability to maintain it in the current operational model, and the need for the complete replacement.
Thank you. We've been hearing about this for a while, and the concern were the areas that were uncamered. So are those all taken care of? We can be assured of that? That was part of the process. Parking, is this inside and out?
Yes. Yes, the proposal is actually kind of a upgrade in place. There's, at this point, no additional cameras being installed. However, just based on some of the walkthroughs and the views that we've seen, just the newer technologies will allow greater capture of the areas under surveillance. Mm-hmm. You can go wider angle and still get better video acuity than you could with a system that's a decade old.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the duration of this contract. It's a little over 5 years, it looks. Is that a standard contract for this kind of service, 5 years and a couple months? How does that?
Yes, the
relate?
way, it's a little over 5 years because the installation work order is going to start first, and then the maintenance service agreement, that will be the 5-year term that is going to kick on as soon as we are at a point where it goes live.
And what was the term of the previous contract with the other contractor?
We're currently just under a maintenance agreement with them, which is continuing at this point until we're able to go.
Is that month to month, year to year? How does
It's
that
year
work?
to year. We've
to
had
year?
that is actually, we've asked for an extension for 12 months with an option to extend it 18 months to cover this installation period so that there is no breakdown of services and continuous transition.
Is there a main place where the security central will be, or is it just dispersed equally throughout the detention center? I mean, is there like a room with all this, a lot of the mainframe? I don't know. Or is it just floating around, just the detention?
So at least the
Area.
detention-centric portion of it, there is a mainframe room that's right off of our central control area. I'm sure there are other areas throughout the court tower where they're going to have to tie in some of those things. And then the actual data center is a Tier 3 off-site data center so that we don't have any loss of data if we have some sort of catastrophic event at our facility itself.
Yeah, so the chair asked about, the past issues with some dark spots, and, I remember the sprinkling incident, the sprinklers, and so this is, I'm sure, going to address those issues.
That is our belief,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything further? Okay, the question about the length is usually we go 3 years. Unless there's rationale behind 5, which would be saving of money. But I don't know if we have concerns to hold this up. It's up to the committee. No. Any concerns with the 5-year? Considering that it's new, but I would caution that as you go forward, that renewals about 3 years just to be safe, okay?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
do we have since it's 5 years, do we have a clause to get out prior to that?
Yes, there are terms for termination and really for 30-day termination clause within the contract.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Nothing. Any further? Okay. If everybody's comfortable, and I assume you want to get going on this as you stated, because you're under contract with the other group. So I'll accept a motion for Resolution 2021-0271 to the full council under suspension, second reading.
You need a motion or you need a
I
second?
need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous business? Anything? We're adjourned.